Welcome back. Oil prices are pulling back this morning. Take a look. The price of Brent is at 99.46, under 100 now, as Iran's new supreme leader says the Strait of Hormuz must remain effectively closed, disrupting shipping and fueling fears of a prolonged energy shock. The analysts this morning at Piper Sandler says that India has one oil tanker moving out of the Strait of Hormuz. Perhaps that was one of the issues that turned prices lower this morning. The U.S. issuing a 30-day waiver allowing the purchase of 124 million barrels of Russian oil already stranded at sea to stabilize prices. President Trump further ensuring oil flow in the Gulf remains safe. Watch this.
Now that tankers are being attacked in the Strait of Hormuz, how are you going to ensure the safety of oil flowing through there?
I think you can see great safety, and it's going to be very, very quickly. We have decimated that country. They're paying a big price now for 47 years of killing. They killed you. You have relatives. We all have relatives. What they've done, and now they're paying for it.
Joining me now is United Refining Company Chairman and CEO John Catsimatidis. John, thanks very much for being here. And you've said these high oil prices and the pain at the pump will only be temporary. You agree with the administration. Give us your views on this war and its impact.
Well, I think it is temporary. It's going to be 30 days initially, and maybe it'll stretch out to 45, 60 days, but that's about it. And I've been told by many people, it says, how's it going to affect food prices? How is it going to affect? It has no real effect. I mean, don't forget, we under the President Biden's administration, we had $90 oil for 4 years. Under President Trump, we have it for 1 month. So what's the big deal right now? But the Strait of Hormuz has to be opened. I talked to some of my Greek ship owner friends yesterday, and they have cargo ships and stuck in the Strait of Hormuz, and they can't move. They have insurance, but it's not about the insurance. And B, that the Navy was willing to help them, but they don't want to have a problem with each one of those ships has about 30 people on them. And he says to me, I spoke to a guy named Nick Sakos, and he says to me, I worry about my people. I don't want my people hurt. And he's got 30 people on each one of those 6 ships. So what President Trump has to do is, I guess, you know, we know President Trump very well, both of us. He takes no prisoners. He's going to straighten out that Strait of Hormuz one way or another. And the Hezbollah has to behave themselves. The Houthis have to behave themselves. And that's what it's all about. But the more important thing, Maria, you know what the more important thing is? That he has a dialogue with China. Yeah. China even criticized Iran yesterday for hitting the other Emirates. And having a dialogue with China and having a dialogue with Putin, you know what that means? It means world peace. That President Trump has achieved world peace by having a dialogue with China and Russia. So the worst case scenario, we have skirmishes, and that it's always going to happen. But I think we're in good shape. Buy equities, sell oil short.
Yeah. All right. So you would be shorting oil now at 94.14 on crude. I mean, look, you mentioned China. China is, of course, now worried because the Strait of Hormuz is such a critical waterway. It's not just a critical waterway for the oil that China needs, but it's also critical for fertilizers, critical to global agriculture and farming. And I know there's real anxiety on the Hill this week over not just gas prices, but the price of fertilizer. Given the spring growing season, we just spoke with Marsha Blackburn about that. We're waiting on the CPI this morning. It showed the PCE we're waiting on this morning after the CPI showed food prices were up 0.4% month over month and 3.1% year over year. Have you seen any follow through at the cash register? Are you expecting to raise prices at Red Apple Group, at D'Agostino's? Should consumers expect to pay more given these moves in oil, gas, and fertilizer?
Not in the near future. If this goes beyond 60 days, we'll ask me again. Okay.
So not in the near future. Does it feel like it's more expensive for you as a producer right now?
Well, doing business in New York City, it's much more expensive than any place else in the world.
Yes, good point, yeah.
We got a significant problem with in New York City with the prices being congestion pricing, the price of energy in New York City, the demands from the state of New York saying that they want all electric, and we don't have enough electric for New York City. So that's part of the problems in New York. But I guess we have to solve them. November is an election, so people have to make a decision which way they go.
So what are you going to do about that? Because New York City Mayor Zoran Mamdani and his fiscal team are under fire now over their projection, which shows a nearly $5.5 billion budget deficit. The team also did not even show up for the start of the budget negotiations with the city council on Wednesday. Mamdani is pushing for Governor Kathy Hochul to bail him out. He's threatened to raise property taxes. Tiana, jump in here. You know all about this, what's going on in New York.
The fascinating thing to me is Mamdani's focus on, he apparently wants to tax the sale of new homes. This proposed mansion tax would start on homes that are $500,000 in New York. I'm no expert here, but I don't think that's a mansion in New York. I think that's like a studio apartment, like in the Lower East Side, right? And so how much of the capital flight is a risk? We know that Mamdani wants to take over a large section of the housing stock. How scared should New Yorkers be about the real estate situation?
Yeah, what do you think, Sean?
Well, I think that Mamdani is a smart guy. He went to Bronx Science High School. He's got 160 IQ. He better learn in the next 30 days. Don't forget, he's got 100 days to learn. Okay. And the fact is that I had Randy Mastro on my show last night, the first deputy mayor last year, and you just have to cut the budget. If you have a $127 billion budget and you have $11 billion shortfall, you know what you do? You cut every department 3%. I mean, what's wrong with that? I mean, you have to be a businessman. You know, President Trump is a businessman. He's more of a businessman, and he's a president too. But you have to be a businessman to run a country or run a city.
Yeah, and that's why he put tariffs in place to get these CEOs to understand these are all national security issues, and he's trying to protect America. We spoke with Jamieson Greer, the trade representative, and here's what he told me just last week. Watch this.
Section 301 allows the Office of the United States Trade Representative to investigate unfair trade practices on a country-by-country basis. This includes things like people who use forced labor in their supply chains, countries where there's industrial excess capacity, and there's a host of other things, discrimination against our digital tech companies, subsidies for rice and seafood and all kinds of things. And if these things aren't resolved by our partner countries, then we can impose a tariff. When the president talks about the case actually resulting in him having a stronger program, this is what he's talking about. It's a very detailed public process that allows him to put into place very durable tariffs under existing law.
So they've got a while. The USTR typically has 12 months to complete these investigations. We could see July 24th as a date to see whether or not we're going to see more tariffs, John.
Well, I think President Trump is trying to do his job, and everybody is trying to stop him from doing his job.
Yeah.
And what did President Trump used to say? They're full of crap. Let the man do his job and make America great again.
All right, John. Great always to talk with you. Catsimatidis, we so appreciate you. Thank you, Cats. We'll be right back. Stay with us.